there are actually so many projects going on in Texas that when we, I talked to Scott about talking about some of the projects in Texas, the dilemma was which ones to pick. So I decided to pick 3 and focus it on talking about things that have been our dreams. My husband and I live in a small town called Driftwood, but it's just outside of Dripping Springs, Texas. This photograph was taken in a backyard in the city of Dripping Springs, inside the city, if that gives you an idea of the type of sky that we have there. That's why I moved there. I like the sky. When I first moved, I met a wonderful fellow named John Gregory, who many of you may have known, but he became my mentor and very good friend. Before I got there, he had helped get a outdoor lighting ordinance enacted in the town. It was a small one. It was a first step. Everybody was glad to have that because the people in the area really appreciate the dark skies. Well, when the first development came in and the city called him and said, "Oh, we've got a light to inspect," and he grabbed me and said, "Come on, we're going over here to inspect this light." Well, it wasn't long before he recommended to the city that they use me for their lighting inspector and to explain the ordinance to people because it was a rather technical ordinance. And most of the developers coming in would read it and just have their eyes roll back in their head. They would go, "What are we supposed to do here?" So I became the lighting inspector, and then we were going to have a big new development come in. So the city decided to work with the developer and have a development agreement. I got to write the outdoor lighting portion of it. So the result of that development agreement is shown in this light, which is a parking lot light in our local Home Depot, our first big box, store at all in the area. When I don't think they understood what actually I had written in the development agreement, to tell you the truth. They, said, "Oh, okay, they were going to put up their regular lights." And I said, wait a minute. Notice we have basically a shoebox light here with a shield all the way around it. It takes care of the glare all the way around. Robert talked this morning about having a light fixture that stopped that glare. We've had it in Dripping Springs since about 2002. The lighting manufacturer said, no, we don't do that. And I said, wait a minute. You put vandal guards on them, don't you? Well, of course. So hook it on the same place. Let's do it. So they built these, and in fact, you can order them, and it has a dash at the end that says HD for Home Depot, because Home Depot in Dripping Springs is the first place that they built them for. We now have them all over town. McDonald's, Chase Bank, the huge grocery store that came in. We have these. But now we do have a lot of new lights that have internal shields, but those first ones, before they could get the internal shields, that's what we had. So once we had all these new lights up and a big new development, it was a great time to really talk about my dream, which was to ask city staff, city council about us writing a new ordinance. With all this as an example, they said yes. So here I get to do my dream. I've never done this before. I don't have a clue what I do. I go to IDA. I get the outdoor lighting handbook. This was before the MLO. This was way before. I get the outdoor lighting handbook. I get the USA Pattern Outdoor Lighting Code, version 2, that Chris Luganville has on his website. Later, before it actually got passed, I did, consult with early versions of the MLO and other successful ordinances around the country. But we have a very straightforward ordinance, easy to understand, pictures and diagrams in it, And we've been very successful with development after development after development coming in there with it. Some of the highlights would be that you must shield the source of illumination from other properties. We live in the Texas Hill Country. Notice hill. If you get a regular, by definition, fully shielded light, or a light that's, has been approved as night sky friendly, if you put it up on a hill and somebody else lives down the hill from you, that light is not night sky friendly anymore, and it's not neighbor friendly. It's trespassing. So we have a lot of homemade shields in the area that do a great job, and the community loves them. We also have a lumens cap, so that the particular parcel of land has a lumens cap, and then the lighting designers can determine where to put the light on there. That's their job. We just want to keep it low. We have had some come in who said, oh no, we've got to have, 50-foot candles everywhere. We're a bank. We said, okay, maybe in the big city, but not here. Not here where the ambient light is so low. And they build it and look at it and go, wow. Wow. We also use half-night photocells. City streetlights that are not on intersections are now required to have half-night photocells. We were talking earlier about, Dan mentioned, I think, reducing the amount of light at night. We do that with half-night photocells going in. So we have an example here of a service station that went in. When the construction foreman was talking with me about the lighting that they were going to put in, because he had to turn in his plan to me, I looked at it and said, no, I'm sorry. Let me talk to you about what you can do. And come on, it's Texas. This guy goes, well, honey, you just don't know. My wife would not come in a service station unless it is fully lit, 40, 50 candles, foot candles everywhere, so she'll feel safe. And he literally was yelling at me, and I'm kind of, yes, sir. Well, let me tell you what the ESNA says. And then he says, uh-oh, she knows what she's doing here. I'm in trouble. Well, they ended up putting these lights in, and to the service station that they said nobody would ever come to because it wasn't going to be brightly lit enough. This is now the highest grossing service station in the HEB group of service stations all over Texas. I guess people feel safe coming in. That's my story, and I'll stick with it. Okay. We also have, I've got another example of the Chase Bank being lit, and you can see Home Depot in the distance. But we have specialty requirements for signs, for sports lighting, and other things. But I wanted to mention our flagpole lighting. This is something I have not seen elsewhere. And I tell you this in case you want to do it in your hometown or tell somebody else about it. If the flagpole is more than 25 feet tall, it must be lit from above. And there's some, real nice products that go on top of the poles. You can also, have it from a building. But that light must be shielded if it's from above. If the flagpole is 25 feet or below, you can light it from the ground. The trick is that we limit the number of lumens based for each foot of pole. So the higher the pole, the brighter the light. It's got to reach the flag. But they can't put a big 1,000-watt bomb on the ground for a 20-foot pole. It won't work. We won't let it happen. And the reason we'll let it come from below is because of research that there were some people in this room who had worked on it that said that light going directly up causes less sky glow than that coming out near the 90 degrees. So that's my first dream, to get that ordinance in place that people could understand and that we could actually enforce. It took a lot of teamwork to get it done, as did this next project. The next project, I brought up a little show and tell. It's about the Texas State Parks project. I don't know whether you can see that, but the point of this slide is that there are over 103 or so facilities across the state of Texas that are owned by Texas Parks and Wildlife. My husband and I had the dream to work with them to reduce light pollution. We got sidetracked with the ordinance and various things. But about a year and a half ago, there was going to be a brand new park. Brand new park. And some of our IDA friends in North Texas brought it to our attention to the rest of us and said, hey, let's get them to put in good lighting at this park to start with. We want to run star parties there. So we had that. And then we had some other IDA members who wanted to focus on some very special parks. This is Enchanted Rock. Some of you may have heard of it. Some very special parks that could potentially be dark sky parks. And then I said, wait a minute, let's do every one of them. So we went together, and about 4 of us spoke in front of the public meeting that the park directors have each year. And we each asked for our dream, but we did it in a way that we worked as a team and said, we can do this, but we can do this big picture too. The park directors, we didn't know. They were already on board. In fact, there was a project that had already started with a joint effort with McDonald Observatory to teach a lot of the park interpreters across the state how to do night sky programming. Well, they hadn't addressed the lighting issue. So when we come up and say, we'll help with this, they were delighted. Well, we, with the IDA group, put together a draft of how we should do this. You know, how we're going to do all these lighting assessments. So we put together a draft, and my friend Steve Bossbach went out and tested it a couple of times. And he'd come back, and I'd go over and we'd work and kind of fine-tune it. Once we had several, we went to talk with the directors, and they were very much on board. With that draft information, I put together a whole training program, and we go out, and I don't know whether you can see these, but we teach them about the project. We talk about outdoor lighting challenges that most of you already know about, lighting fixtures, the good and the bad, how to do the assessments, data collection forms, your appendix with all sorts of good information. We give these out, and to date, we have, of the 78 parks that the directors asked us to originally go and work in, 78. That's a lot. You know, think about that number. We have people signed up, have volunteers trained and signed up for 64 of those parks already. We just started, late last spring. So that, puts us to the point of having parks all across Texas, all the way across Texas, being assessed. That's a lot of parks for us. Okay, that again has taken a huge amount of teamwork. My last dream that I want to tell you about has not come to fruition yet. Right now it's just on paper or digital form or whatever it may be at the moment. But it's a dream, another dream, a third dream. And this dream is for something that I don't really have a good name for it. Right now, for you guys, I'm calling it the Better Vision Bulb. If any of you ever worked with helping people get better lighting, residential, commercial, whatever, there are a lot of post-top lights out there. Have y'all ever noticed that? And a lot of carriage lights and other lights that have the socket at the bottom, the light, goes up vertically and blares into your eyes. People don't want to replace those. We've got a few nice replacements, but people don't want to go out and replace all of those. Well, what if the bulb itself did the cutoff? What if that top is solid? Can you see the lines of the light? I've got LEDs up in here, LEDs pointing out and down and to the side. I'd like to see this in a standard socket, a candelabra socket, a mogul socket, whatever. Change the bulb and change the world. And I'll do like Robert, and I'll say, I'm looking for a manufacturer. I just think that this could help us. I just can't imagine the numbers of light fixtures that we could change and reduce glare, help people save money, reduce the light pollution. And when we tell them about it and put it on the box, ask them to cut it off when they're not using it, please. So, thank you.